bought like some giant random box of cards, and he says he loves finding random things and then tracking people down. And he sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, and he asked me to autograph one of my cards.
Your hockey cards were in just some random guys
from when I was
from your bar
13
mitzvah.
years old. Yes.
Hey guys, Alex Rich.
Ben Corimba.
Hey, we are excited to let you know that we have episodes of our podcast, Jews in the Lou, dropping every other week, and you're not going to want to miss. We have some great guests lined up.
Amazing. And while I have you, I want to thank the St. Louis Jewish Light for their incredible partnership and support of our podcast. St. Louis Jewish Light doing amazing work for our community, keeping us informed with stories, with updates.
And visit stlJewishLight.org. Subscribe to their newsletter. They'll keep you up to date on everything going on.
Absolutely. See you soon.
Yeah, honestly, there's no intro or anything. This is Jews in the Lou. We're in a different place today, but Ben is out. Obviously, he's had a lot to recover with the tornado damage, but he'll be back joining us here on some of the next episodes. But I wanted to bring you in, Joe Goldberg, of course, because I'm a big fan of True Fusion. I'm there all the time, but you're a Jew in the Lou, so welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about you're from St. Louis. Talk about your background just a bit.
I grew up in St. Louis, went away to college in Colorado, and then moved to New York City. Spent a couple of years there, which I think is good for everybody.
Yep.
And wasn't the plan to come back here, but next thing you know,
it's home.
25 years later, I'm back.
And you didn't always you weren't always in the fitness industry?
No. When I moved back, I helped grow a wealth management and investment management company called Buckingham. I joined as an intern, and part of my job as an intern is they wanted me to do a research report on the retirement plan market, the 401k market, and I researched it probably more at the library in that 8-week period than 4 years of college.
Yeah.
But I turned it in with a business plan to start the 401k department there. So when I joined, we had around 11 people, and 16 years later, I was traveling nearly every week. I had 2 kids, one of which has some special needs, and life was difficult. And I realized that my group fitness habit, which was costing me around $600 or $700 a month, was the most important money that I spent for my mental sanity. So I kind of started down a path of how do you bring all the different things that I was going to multiple places for, different classes, different types of workout, into one place to make it more convenient, more affordable. And through some really random circumstances, I ended up finding a brand new franchise that hadn't even opened a franchise location outside of Las Vegas.
I had no idea. I did not know a lot of this at all.
Yes. So I was a big believer that the mental health benefits of group fitness is the best medicine that you can give yourself. And we really did. We had a mission to make St. Louis a happier and healthier place to live. And I always stress when we talk about our mission that it's the happier place to live, not necessarily the healthier. The healthier comes with it, but we don't have a scale. We're really about having people come in and leave feeling better than they were. And so I left that business to stay home with my kids, and opened it up about a block, 2, 3, or 4 blocks away from my house.
Yeah.
It was going great, and then this whole thing called COVID happened, and it added another chance to, let's just say, bring in a Jewish characteristic of resiliency.
Yep.
And face some challenges, and fast forward 5 years, believe it or not, later, and we're still here.
That's unbelievable. And it's crazy because I don't really hear a ton about people that go into fitness or that are fitness trainers, like they're dietitians, or they have that background, and it's they study that for all these years. But for you, it was really just about seeing how important mental health was for you, and that you weren't, I'm sure you were making great money doing what you were doing, but it's it wasn't necessarily always about the money. It was about what's best for you mentally and for your family.
It's a really well said point, because I left my business, which happened to be owned by other Jewish partners of mine. Was Buckingham was founded by 4 Jewish individuals, and then my close friend and partner is another successful Jewish. He's the CEO now, and the company's grown to 1,200 people when we started. And so when I left that business, I told my friend and partner, I hope this is the worst financial decision I ever make because it means that you'll continue to be successful. But
Yeah.
for me, it was really about a lifestyle and a mission. And I don't talk about this that much, but people say like, do you have partners? Do you have investors? And I did not want to have investors, and I did
Right.
not want to have partners because I wanted to create a community that was with the intention of being able to fund my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have investors in a business, like you have to provide a rate of return. You have to be conscious over every dollar that you spend because you have a
Right.
responsibility. I wanted to create an environment that would change people's lives and that would, for the people that work for us and the people that would come. And sometimes it's not making the smartest financial decisions,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more of like a long term. There's an author and a speaker that I love, Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called The Infinite Game, which is talking about building a business for into perpetuity, not
Mm-hmm.
for like next year's
Right.
return.
Right.
And that's kind of how I think, and I do believe that it goes back to Jewish values of being of service and family first and kind of doing what I feel like every day. I feel like as I'm impacting people's lives for the
Yeah.
better. Which don't get me wrong, Buckingham was a very similar aligned values where their mission was to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot from mentors there that I brought into the fitness side.
Do you feel like, and I was going to ask, how have your Jewish values, your Jewish morals, how has that kind of translated to what you're doing now? But are there certain things like talk about, I guess, how you were brought up a little bit into Judaism, raised it like, did you have a bar mitzvah? Did you go to Sunday school growing up? And what are those big things that you learned as a kid that have been a huge part of now the success and the morals and values that True Fusion's built on now?
Yeah, I just went this Friday night to a Shabbat service who was a parent of a child that was in Israel, and that while we were having this service, they read a note that their son wrote for a rabbi for the sermon, and he talked about community and how he never felt alone, even though it was the scariest time.
He's back safe now?
Don't think he is back. My cousin's child.
Is this
just
the
got
group
back.
is this the group of kids that's the Ledoux
Yeah.
kids? I heard about
Yep.
this.
Yep.
It's scary.
Yep. Yeah. So my cousin's
And
daughter.
I think Ben's mom is in Israel.
My
right
cousin's
now.
daughter just got back. She heads the Temple Israel, or she co-heads the Temple Israel Deutsch child care center, whatever camp.
Okay.
And I think she was a chaperone on a birthright trip.
Okay.
And so she got on a cruise ship and she got out. But going back to what you said is resiliency. I mean, community and coming together and being resilient through challenging times. I mean, you go back to the Jews in Egypt and slaves, and then my own personal story is my grandparents got out on one of the last ships before everything was shut down from Germany. My great uncle did not get on the ship and ended up in Auschwitz. And and he was part of my life. He survived the concentration camp. He outsurvived 3 spouses, and his story is a big part of me. And my grandfather, who came over from Germany they literally smuggled some money on their honeymoon to Amsterdam, from what I understand, so that because when they left Germany, they couldn't leave with anything.
Right.
But they had the kind of foresight to like bring something up to Amsterdam where they had some family, and that's where they got on the boat and they came over, and somehow got connected to cousins in St. Louis, and my grandfather started a manufacturing company out of his garage with his cousin that's now in its third generation. I have cousins that run it. And you think about like what it took to come to a new country where you
Yeah.
hardly know anyone, you don't even know the language,
Right.
and to see the success that he had. My grandfather passed away when I was about 10, but I was really close with my grandmother and all of our cousins, and I worked in the factory. I went to work in high school thinking I'm gonna have to work here, so I'm gonna make
Right.
sure these people respect me. So I worked my butt off.
Right.
And things like my grandfather treating every single person from the janitor to their vice presidents
Mhm.
the same. Like,
Totally.
those were all things that I, whether you would define them as Jewish values or not,
Mhm.
they're the Jewish people in my life that taught me that.
Right.
And so, when it took me about 14 or 18 months to get True Fusion to profitability after putting everything I had earned on the line to
Yeah.
open this business that I earned from my time at Buckingham. And my first month of profitability was February of 2020, and March was COVID.
So you were just starting to see finally
Literally,
return on this long
literally,
term game.
my first month of profitability was February of 2020.
And the way you were able to pivot was incredible going into COVID as well. Cause I was there when you were doing classes outside, classes in the garage. You were making things work.
We I just put together a video. I haven't released it yet to kind of like commemorate the 5 years anniversary of we moved to the parking garage for a year. We had about 155,000 square feet. I called up my landlord and I was like, we're not going to survive
Yeah.
unless you let me use your parking garage. And they said, if I can get the city of Clayton to give me a conditional use permit to make the parking garage a gym,
Yeah.
then you can do it. And it takes like 6 to 8 weeks to get a conditional use permit. And I got somebody over there in 2 days, and they said, as long as you don't disturb the neighbors, you can do it. And then, I mean, we literally just figured it all out as we went. I probably had over 1,000 feet of extension cords, speaker wire. I had threats from neighbors taking me to
I'm
court
sure.
for lawsuits for
Yeah, I'm sure.
noise. Then it turned winter, and we had 32 propane heaters on the 4th and 5th floor of
Which
the parking
creates a
garage.
whole nother
Which
level of permits. I'm sure
I
you
might
need to
have been.
get.
No, I didn't. We were just not allowed to store propane anywhere but the ground floor. So
Yeah.
I had a Model 3 Tesla, which is like a little tiny electric car, and every other morning I would load it with 18 canisters. I'd put all the seats down, 18 canisters of propane, and drive them up to the 4th and 5th floor and swap out the heater tanks, and we would put our kettlebells underneath the heaters so the
And these
handles
classes
wouldn't.
are, I mean, mind you, these classes are, so you were doing this at 3:00 in the morning, probably.
Yes, and I had eventually some stuff got stolen, so I installed my own security system. I put motion sensors in at all the entry points, and I lived down the street. And so at 3:00 in the morning, an alarm would go off, and I would drive up there, and usually I'd catch people
That's
like messing
insane.
around. But we
You made it work.
we made it work. And going back to my worst financial decisions, like I was bleeding capital, but it was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. We had a day that we had 450 people
Yeah.
in classes in an outdoor parking garage. And all of those people, I have stacks of emails that I shared with all of our staff, like
Yeah.
how important it was to them that they had a place to go. At that time, we had nowhere to go.
Mhm.
And, Buckingham was a mission-driven business. They taught me to be a mission-driven business. And when I think of making St. Louis a happier and healthier place, there was never a time I felt more critical of doing what we did to give people during that time. And, so fast forward, it took 4 years to get back to profitability. So it took about 18 months to get there. And then it took 4 years to finally start paying off some of what it took to build.
God, that's insane. I honestly had no idea about any of that. I mean, I knew that obviously COVID had a lot of obstacles for a lot of people, but I mean, you think about fitness and gyms specifically, there were probably a lot of gyms that just had to close all the way down. And
There were a lot of places that didn't make it. And like I don't want to like share any of this for pity. I want people to walk into places and recognize what it takes.
Yeah.
But you factor in like what interest rates were, 7 or 8 years ago when people
Mhm.
started business or made investments, and then all those revenue streams were impacted. I mean, there was hardly anything except for masks and disinfectant that
Right.
actually had a surge from COVID. And then you see where interest rates went and the ongoing impact of COVID for people like paying back money that
Right.
they could have paid back long
Right.
ago, but COVID really just put like a 2 or 3 year like halt for so many different things that it's still impactful. And I kind of looked at it as like I got my MBA
Yeah.
and that was the price.
Were there
Um,
were there times throughout that where you kind of thought like maybe I'm just like I'm sure there was several times where you thought I'm down on myself. I gotta like we just gotta close up and I gotta figure out something new,
yeah,
or was it 100% like you were just
I was gonna make it
committed to
work.
it?
I Whatever it took, I was
Yeah.
gonna make it work. My 10-year-old, she's almost 15 now. Um, we wanted to open like the county wouldn't tell us when we could open, and
Hmm.
then finally, I think on like June 1st, I think they said we could open June 15th. I think that was it. And you've been to my place,
Sure.
and it is. I don't want to say it's high end and bougie, but there is an experience that you feel. And when
Yeah.
I told my team we were going to the parking garage, I was like, I don't want to show any pictures of this place
Right.
until we're ready,
Right.
because if somebody thinks of a parking garage, they're gonna think that's
Well,
gross.
you take a lot of pride in what you guys do there. And I mean, you create a space that people feel comfortable in, that people feel like, like you're doing something again for your mental health that's better. Look, like you can go anywhere and do something good for your body, right?
We bought 3,500 pounds of rubber gym flooring, and we were supposed to open on a Monday. And on Thursday, they called me to say, okay, it's going to get on the truck tomorrow. It's going to get delivered on Friday.
Yeah.
And so I was like, perfect. We're going to get it delivered on Friday.
Yep.
We're going to cut it. And we put 4x8 squares or rectangles of rubber floor to space out where people could then put their mat so they weren't on the parking garage floor.
Yeah.
And then on Friday morning, I got the same phone call. And they're like, oh, we're calling to see if we can deliver it on Monday. I said, no, we're opening Monday.
Right.
We're opening Monday. They're, oh, sorry, we didn't get on a truck. So my 10-year-old and I went to Home Depot and we rented a flatbed truck and drove to the freight yard to get the pallets of flooring. They put the first one on and then they put the second one on, and it set off the weight alarm for the Home Depot truck. So we took two
You
trips.
knew, I was going to say, you knew you were going to have a lot of trips to take.
We took 2 trips back and forth to the freight yard down in the city, and my daughter and I would shove off these rolls. We cut the pallets, so
Yeah.
we just shoved the rolls off, and then my team came up and we cut them and laid them out, and we were ready to
worked
open.
out.
And the first class that we had 4 different areas that we held classes, and I didn't realize that all of our outlets were on one circuit breaker. And so as soon as we turned on these big, like, I bought these shop vac fans that like circulate air. We turned the last one and everything went off. And I had the first day that we opened, I had 50,000 steps on my Apple Watch of running around the parking garage, getting everything work. And then we dropped like more extension cords down 2 floors to another outlet. I mean, it was.
But you were doing whatever
when
it takes.
We were going to do whatever it took, and we
I
did it.
And I think I think that goes back to what I like to talk to a lot of people about is Jewish culture as a whole. I feel like, you're talking about you've had to work your way to certain things to make them happen for yourselves. You come from a family, there's Holocaust survivors that came here to America and they did whatever it took just to make something happen. Do you feel like that deep down within your Jewish background that is a huge part in what has gotten you to where you're at, and seeing those, like seeing your great uncle, seeing your cousins do all these things, like having their own business and working there and working their way up, and nothing's just ever given to you. You always kind of do have to work with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder to earn that respect that maybe the general public doesn't necessarily always give to
Yeah.
people that are Jewish around town. But do you feel like that's a huge factor?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like I was 16 years old,
Yeah.
and somehow I had the I don't know, the mental fortitude to think like these guys that worked in the back of this factory
Right.
were Harley driving, like scary looking people to me at the time. And
Right.
this is, the early 90s at the time. And I worked the dirtiest, worst job in the factory. And my grandpa wasn't around at that time, so my uncle was running it, but nobody told me that I needed to gain those people's respect.
Right.
I watched what the people in my life did. And the other thing that I didn't really share was this was my mother's side. My father had a family business that was a Jewish owned family business. And the year before I went to college, he was a supplier of health and beauty aids to grocery stores and Walgreens. Like he would buy and then distribute them out to those. Well, one of the big local grocery store chains bought out National Food Store, and
Okay.
it put my father out of business.
Okay.
And I just like shared this with him, like how impactful it was. But
Yeah.
my father had to close his business down right before I went to college. And on the way of driving me to college, I remember him studying to take his securities exam to go. He actually did go to work for Buckingham. He was I was like the 11th person. He was like the fifth person.
Wow.
And I just remember the impact of that was like nothing's putting him down.
Right.
It's a terrible time. Your kid's
Because how
about to
long
go
at
to.
that point had he owned his own business?
He
Your
took it
whole.
over from his father.
Oh,
So
so
it was a long standing.
so it hit
family
extra
business.
hard for him to
Yeah, yeah,
where he may have felt a sense of, I guess, not necessarily failure because there was nothing at that point that he could have
Yeah.
done, but
But what are you gonna do?
But what are
My
you gonna
kid's
do?
about to go to this expensive college in
Right.
Colorado, and I've got another kid that's in high school, another kid that's still in college, um, and he didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
unbelievable.
okay. This is what I'm gonna do, and I think that those things, it's the resiliency and it's the community. Like his accountant that helped him shut down the business was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I know you're into like numbers and you're an engineering guy. We're starting this business. Do you want to come join? And sure enough, it was another Jewish friend of his.
Yeah.
And but it was you don't skip a beat.
Mhm.
And I have a child right now that's at a school in Utah that's for kids on the autism spectrum, and I got remarried 3 years ago, and I've shared some of the things that would happen in my house at the time when we
Mhm.
didn't really understand what was going on with my children, and to me it was just that's life. Like you
Yeah.
got to figure it out, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And when people have heard some of the things, they're like, "How the hell did you do that?"
Yeah.
And all of that is happening while True Fusion is moving in the parking garage, and
Right.
it's like I I will say I recognize this, and I think people around me recognize this for everything that was going on in my life, aside from just the financial risk of what could happen if COVID shut down True Fusion. My drive to success was an outlet.
Mhm.
Like my drive to survivor is really more what it was for COVID is like survive as success. It was I had to focus on something that I could control,
Yeah.
that I could will myself to make work.
Right.
Where things at home with my child at that time were there's so much that was out of my control that I
Right.
didn't understand. Like they all work together to kind of like help me get through everything. And to this day now, I have an amazing relationship with my child who recognizes what I did to change my life to be there for him. At the time, he didn't.
Yeah.
But he's older now, and it's I see what my father did. I see what my grandfather did, and I now have a child old enough who's recognizing that he's seeing what I did, and I whether that's Judaism or just a good tight family that
Mhm.
sets a good example for one another. That's what I see it as.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a great point because I think that yes, it may just be, hey, this is how a nice tight family, a good family dynamic, good relationship with everybody should be. But I do think it kind of goes back to Judaism in a way where everybody kind of has everybody's back, right? And we talk about this. You feel a different type of connection when
Sure.
when you meet people that there's kind of an unspoken understanding of, hey, we've got this similarity. And if it kind of goes back to just everybody at the end being a good person that has everybody else's back. And like you said, you're treating the janitor, you're treating everybody the same as you would treat the CEO of a company. I think that goes a long way to kind of pass those morals and traditions down to your kids.
And you really like I'm a high holiday Jew. I go
Sure.
for bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs.
Mhm.
I did have a bar mitzvah.
What was
I'll
the
tell you a
theme?
funny story.
Yeah, we'll go back to
I was a
that.
hockey goalie, so
Okay.
this is really funny. This is recent. So at the tables of all my dinner, my parents had these hockey cards made of me, and it said Joe Goldberg, Joey. I went by Joey if you knew me before.
Of course.
Future,
what
future
yeah.
hockey playing lawyer or something like that. And about maybe 3 months ago,
They put you automatically into they stereotyped you at 13 years old.
Lord, right. 4 months, because I was really good at arguing. I was really good at arguing my way. But about 4 months ago, I got this envelope in the mail at work at my studio, and it was a stack of about 10 of my goalie cards.
Really?
And it was this guy from somewhere in Illinois who, like, for like a buck, like bought 1,000,000 baseball card. No, baseball card store is called 1,000,000 Cards. He bought like some giant random box of cards, and he says he loves finding random things and then tracking people down. And he sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, and he asked me to autograph one of my cards.
Your hockey cards were in just some random guys
from when I was
from your bar
13
mitzvah.
years old. Yes, that some guy bought at some card shop called Million Cards. I think it's in South County.
No
But
way.
yes, he found my picture. He found my picture tied to True Fusion. He looked at the picture and compared it, and he was
He's like, this is Joey.
This is the
This
same
is little
guy."
Joey.
And sure enough, he sent me a stack of them with.
Are you serious? That's insane.
That was from my bar mitzvah. But going back to so we have Passover Seders every year. And when you think about like the story of Passover, it's a 40-year journey that our people went through to get to their home or where they were going to go. And it was resiliency.
Right.
It was like lots of people would give up. Lots of people would just say, I'm just going to stay where I am. I'm going to put up with this. I'm going to accept life the way that it is, even if I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that story year after year after year that we hear as during the Passover Seder is a story of resiliency.
Yeah.
And, my grandfather was not going to live in a country where, chances are he wouldn't have lived. He lost several siblings and cousins, and my uncle lost children and spouses, or my great uncle. And everything was, I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to make my life and the life for my children better. And it goes back to that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like a continuation of that if you really think about it.
No, I think that's awesome. Look, I'm, I go to the Shabbat services every once in a while when I can make the time to do it, but that's something that we want to do. I'm getting ready to get married, and that's something we want to do is, we're not necessarily the most religious people, but we want to use, and actually Annie is not Jewish, but what she likes about Judaism is we want to use like Shabbat or Friday night as a time to look, like we get Fridays are busy for people. It's the weekend, but we want to set aside that time each week where the family gets together and has those conversations that don't necessarily need to be religious conversations, but just understanding that family is important, and where you come back to that and you teach those things where hey, it's important to show respect. It's important to have each other's back. If you can't accomplish something, don't just give up. Try to figure out a way to make it happen. I like to think that I'm a really good problem solver, and as you are, you just talked about all the problems that you've solved, creating a business that's now completely successful. But I think that those stories and you relating it back to Passover and having the Seder and teaching those things to your kids, I think that's unbelievable. Even again, even if there's not religion anywhere involved in the conversation of it, it's that undertone where there still is religion and it's still Judaism that it ties back to that creates this entire story.
Yeah. So, the family that just had the child in Israel
Mhm.
did have a Shabbat service at their house and said that they plan to make this weekly. And what they shared, I think, is a great example of how to continue these traditions, even
Right.
if Sunday schools are attendance is low. My kids didn't go to Sunday school,
Sure.
but we want you have plans Friday night, you will whatever you want. You know what? Just stop in for the
Yeah.
prayer. Stop in when we say the prayer for the wine
Right.
and the bread, and it's just about knowing that we're all here for one another.
Yeah, and Shabbat doesn't necessarily have to be, about lighting the Shabbat candles and doing the blood. Like it is. It's just about spending quality time with people for a purpose. And when you're giving people your time that you want, like the people that you want to give your time to, that's purposeful to me because you're building those relationships and having those connections that you want where you're being very selective and you're choosing, hey, I want to spend this time with these people. It doesn't matter what else we're talking about or what we're doing. It's just important. And I think that that's incredible telling that story. And, I think that it goes a really long way. And I think that that's what people, it's hard for us as Jews to, to explain that to people.
Yeah, and this is reminding me of I know sometimes I forget about this, or to share it, but I'm not. I would say I'm not necessarily like private about this, but I did early on in my life uh, entered sobriety. So I went to my third rehab when I was 23,
Okay.
and I spent 6 months there. And in that time, I developed a spiritual life. And so prior to that, I don't want to say I was anti-religion, but
Hmm.
I didn't really want to have anything to do with that. And so I spent 6 months in Minnesota, and when I came home, I was really excited to go to temple. And I because spirituality had become part of my life, and
Right.
there's more about my grandfather and just lots of things that like led me to make that connection. And I went to temple and I sat there and I was so disappointed. I was like, I had these expectations for this like spiritual experience that I was gonna just feel so much a part of. And then fast forward, like, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 months later, I ended up playing golf with the rabbi. And and one of the things that made it really enjoyable was the guy cursed on the golf course more than anyone I've ever played with. And it just humanized him for me. So
Totally.
it totally opened me up to have the conversation that I probably wouldn't have had if he hadn't been dropping
Right.
F-bombs. Like
Right.
I loved
Right.
it. And so um I said like here's what happened and I came home and he was the rabbi. He was the rabbi there and I was like it just like let me down and he's like I see religion as like a nine-sided diamond, or you might have said a five-sided diamond, whatever it is. And each side is a distinctively different element of it. And that I just don't feel like I need to go to temple to pray.
Right.
And he's like, honestly, temple's the last place I go to pray.
Hmm.
And religion has the spiritual side, the community side, the service side. Like I can't remember all the different ones, but he's like one of the most important part of it is community. I go to services every Friday night
Yeah.
for the community. I want people to feel connected to me, so when
Right.
they lose somebody, that I'm a person that can be there. And it was really meaningful to me to kind of like understand that here's this spiritual leader
Hmm.
that says temple's the last place I go to pray.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
I go to temple for the community,
Right.
and it kind of just all goes back to the same thing, which is
Right.
about being there for one another. And I've had some conversations with some of my friends that are more involved in the Jewish community.
Hmm.
I'm not uninvolved, but I have a lot of actually through recovery. Um, I have a lot of friends that are outside of the Jewish community.
Yeah.
And when you think about people that get connected to a temple, like a lot of times the connection comes from the temple being there for a traumatic event.
Totally.
And people in recovery, a lot of times they build these bonds with people because you go through not traumatic, but you get better together.
Sure.
And so once I got that perspective of seeing what kind of the temple and the congregation is there for, it really helped me not be against, like, I don't necessarily agree with everything that is written
Yeah.
in the Bible or the
Sure.
stories. Like they don't always resonate with me.
Right.
But what resonates with me is a group of people being there for one another and having like common values and common goals to support one
Yeah.
another. And it really helped me. Those like just little bits of life experiences that
Yeah.
just randomly
Dude,
happen.
this is I'm learning a lot. This is awesome. I didn't know a lot of that, and I think that you brought up a good point because it is be there for the reason that makes sense to you, that you want to be there
Right.
for. And you bring up a story, but I think every Jewish boy growing up's got a funny story about a rabbi, right? Like I remember we went to like a retreat or something, and we were playing like Never Have I Ever or whatever. We were like, Never have I ever smoked weed, and then the rabbi like put down a finger, and we were all like, oh my God, like oh my God, like it's promising to also know that that those prominent figures in the Jewish community are real people. Like
Yeah.
they're real people. They understand life. They understand life's mistakes. They understand life's experiences, and they understand that everybody has a different path to get to where they want to go. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of what you make of it, and we all have each other's backs. And I think that
Yeah.
that's cool. I didn't know a lot of this about you,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I think that's the point of this conversation in Jews in the Lou, and why we like to highlight people in the community, people that are doing special things. And obviously True Fusion's a special place. I go there myself, and I think that you know relating it back to you do it for the reason that you want to do it. I will say, like, it's nice to find a routine in things, right? Like,
Mhm.
I played college baseball, was active my whole life. And really, there was a time kind of coming out of it, I guess, into the real world where it was like, I just got sick of going to the gym and doing the same old thing and motivating myself and like being kind of in my own head space of like, I'm just doing this so that I can look better, right? But it's not about always just looking better or doing the exercises so that, you're feeling better, but mentally, like, you just get into a good space and a good rhythm. And I think that True Fusion has created a space for me, at least, where, and I think that just about every member there would say the same thing, that it's a space where everybody's kind of there. Yes, we're working out, and like let's put it on the table and be honest. Like, nobody really, I think, loves like working out. Probably everybody's like, oh, this sucks. Like, I gotta go do this, right? But like, when you're there and you're doing it and you're a part of it, and there's all these other people that are a part of the same thing, you just feel good about something. You feel good about like these other people pushing you to keep going. And I think that the community that you've created there is, I applaud you for what you've created there, because I think that you're telling this story about yourself and why you got into wanting to do this. But I can't imagine how many of the members of any gym anywhere have a similar story where we don't know what a lot of people are going through. And I think that a lot of people probably have the same opinion and the same thought about, hey, this program, like you call it a program, whatever, this routine, and being able to go there and have people to support me and have people to like just have my back in a workout community. It's changed my life. I would be so curious to see how many
Yeah.
stories similar that there would be.
So, and part of it is also like there's thought behind everything, like the lights, the music, the look. Like when you can make it more fun,
Mm-hmm.
people want to come. But
100%.
there was a medical journal that studied. I think they studied first year med students, so it wasn't a huge group, but they came out and they said that group fitness um, enhances your quality of life 3
Mhm.
times as much as individual fitness.
Really?
And what it is, they're looking at dopamine and serotonin,
Yep.
and that you get pushed harder by a group, but also that there's a military effect of
Mhm.
doing difficult things, even with people that you don't even know, but just in proximity. There's
Huh.
also evidence now that shows that moving together with the people that you are connected to
Right.
actually opens up. What is oxytocin? It's like it opens up the brain chemical that allows you to feel connected to one another.
Yeah.
And so there's actually science behind part of making sure that, or not making sure, but part of why I believe that everything's done better in a group.
Yeah.
Um, but you also make it fun. I mean,
It
you
totally.
most of the instructors, have some humor, but it really is. It's a to me it's a special place. Believe it or not, we have over 85 instructors between our 2 places and all the classes that we put on. And when you think about the role that those people play in our members'
Yeah,
lives,
yeah.
there are a lot of people that are very routine. So they take the same classes
Totally.
each day.
Yep.
Monday there's this is their class, Tuesday this is their class, and those instructors become part of people's lives.
100%.
And we try our best to even staff our front desk with the same people that we can on certain days, because you see the same people
Yep.
and they become part of your daily routine. And you think about, I mean, like the food hall is amazing, right?
Mhm.
It's an amazing place, and it helps our city by creating a great place to go every now and
Totally.
then. But when you think about a place that you're creating that people are going to go daily,
Right.
like that's changing somebody's life,
No
giving
doubt.
somebody a happy place, giving somebody a place that they can go where every day
Right.
there's a group of people pushing them to work harder and be better and leave happier. And I say, like, if I can make somebody feel better when they leave, they're going to go home. They're going to be a better spouse. They're going to be a better dad. They're going to be a better son. They're going to be a better employee.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a domino effect. And the more that we can make it to where it is fun and people want to do it, then the more likely we are to impact more people.
I think it's awesome. I think I've learned a lot, obviously, talking to you in this conversation, that I didn't necessarily know, but it makes me have even more respect for you as a person and True Fusion as a business that you've built. Um, Again, kind of off of those Jewish backgrounds, without putting it completely on the table. It's incredible. I think what you've done is awesome, and I appreciate you sharing about it and sharing your personal life experiences that have gotten you to this point. I do like to throw in some stuff that's not as serious about some of the other stories that maybe we talk about, but because we'll wrap up here in just a couple minutes, but um tying it back to the Judaism and the day-to-day life, are there certain words or phrases, Yiddish words or phrases that you like to use, that you throw in, that you casually find yourself saying? Or recently, I mean, we've learned some good ones on Jews in the Lou. I'm trying to think of one that I've
my
recently learned a lot.
my wife teaches my daughter one, and I will probably screw it up, but I think it's a Pachfestate, Bavorshkestate, and
Okay.
it means something along the lines of um, it's better to be kind than I'm drawing a total blank. I'm getting old and I'm drawing a blank. But my wife kind of hammers it into my daughter, which is her stepdaughter, and it's about it's better to kind of like take care of others and be good to others than it
Yeah.
is to like try to make yourself great. Um, and so that's a good one. But a lot of the Yiddish, my grandmother, she passed away with a German accent. And so like my cousins and I were really close, and we do call. I have 2 cousins, and we call each other, and we sing "Happy Birthday" on their voicemail with our Grandma Ernie German accent.
Do you really?
Yeah. Even to this day, like I'm 48, and my cousin, I think, he just turned like 53, 54, and called and left a voicemail like "Happy good birthday." It's a half German,
That's too
and
funny.
so we leave Grandma Ernie voicemails, and it's definitely uh, a generation passing things on to one another that we try to hold on to.
Any family recipes, anything, any Jewish recipes that
Uh, my mom makes Mimi cookies. It's not necessarily Jewish.
Okay.
My sister from her mother-in-law has become the challah lady.
Okay.
And
It's nice to have a challah lady in house or
they're
in
amazing.
Yeah.
And like people say, am I gatekeeping these? And just so you know, they're not gatekeeping, because if you go into my sister's kitchen, on the wall is a framed recipe of her challah
Of the challah.
and my mom's cookies.
Really?
So we're not gatekeeping them.
Okay.
But yes, like my friend's daughter had a bat mitzvah and they wanted challahs and they wanted my sister's
And she did the
challahs. And
challahs.
so she helped their help also, because they needed a lot more than my sister could do.
That's awesome though.
But yes, that's that. Most as a child, actually, most of my Jewish food memories were not good.
Really?
Like, I remember like really stringy brisket at my aunt's house. Like,
okay. See, I think my mom's brisket is just the best.
yeah, I anything on my mom's side of the family. I probably shouldn't say this, but anything on my mom's side of the family, the food was usually either made by somebody else. There was a point in time where I think that some of the elder generation should have maybe stopped,
That's
but-
how it goes. I swear, my grandma is like, she'll be in the hospital. So she's 94 and she's talking about like, oh, when I get out of here, you guys will come over and I'll cook for you. And we're like, you don't have a kitchen anymore. It's like, but she still processes this like, I want to cook. I want to do these things for you. So it's funny though.
Have you seen? I think it's a Netflix show. It's based on a real place in New York, in Staten Island, called the Nonas. It's a
I've heard about
restaurant
it.
where
No.
it's all grandmas.
Oh, the grandmas.
Yes.
The grandmas rotate from
Yeah.
all over the world. They bring grandmas in
My
to
wife
cook.
and I just watched the show. It's a drama. It's funny.
Have you been to the place or no?
No, but my two stepdaughters are going to New York, and they're like,
They have to check it out.
We need to go.
They gotta check it out.
It's just the concept of it is amazing.
That's
And it is about like the family recipes.
yes, and it's different culture, different heritage, like different backgrounds. It's like different every night. It's all. I think it's an incredible concept.
Yeah.
That'll be your next. That'll be your next big endeavor here in St. Louis. You'll
Nana's
have-
restaurant.
True Fusion will be connected to a grandma's type style restaurant. How often do you get confused for the Joe Goldberg from the show You?
That's a really funny question. I've done some pickup where like I went into Soul Taco and the lady's like, "That's not really your name. You made that up."
It's great.
But yes, it is. What's really funny is you can't tell because this is sitting down, but
Yeah.
I'm not a very tall individual. And when I was in college, the wrestler Bill Goldberg was really famous.
Okay.
And I would go to places and be like, "Are you related to the wrestler?" And
Look
he's
at
like
me, dude.
7 feet tall and massive. And then there's me. So no. But yes, I have everywhere.
When you make
Usually
a
take out
reservation,
when
yeah.
I make reservations.
Yeah.
They're like, "Have you seen the show about you?" No, I'm not a serial killer. Don't worry.
You're like, that's why you wear a white hat instead of the black hat. You're like less inconspicuous.
I
than-
am glad at least I hear from like the teenagers that they think he's hot.
That's fair.
So if I'm gonna get
take what you can
confused,
get.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you're better a good looking dude than someone like some
even
guy that
if
nobody
he's
wants
a
to.
crazy serial killer.
Totally, 100%. It is what it is. No, I appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time to chat with me today, and yeah, man, what a story! I did not know a lot of this. This is
Well, no, you-
unbelievable, but I appreciate you sitting down and chatting more about it. We'll have you back again when Ben returns. We'll have some more questions for you, and we'll get you. Well, I got to get Ben out for a workout. is
Jews
what
in
I
the
gotta
loo.
do.
I love it.
We got to
It's
do
a great
Jew-
idea. It's
a
a great
Jews
idea.
in the loo. What do we need? Like a Jews in the loo.
Class.
Yeah, well, I mean, like
we
maybe
could
a
really
Hanukkah
come up
class
with-
or something.
We could do a little
8 different-
a hora in the middle of the rock room.
I'm down. You have
we'll
our
get a chair.
buy-in.
We'll get a chair.
We gotta practice.
We'll put Tim Brown up in
I
the
love
chair
it.
and toss him up in there.
I love it. Thank you, dude. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate you,
you.
man.
All right.